I'm sitting here at the bus stop again, waiting on Sam, wearing my little DK Y transitions. Mm, I think it might get a little dark for daytime. I don't know, but I still like the Lash Freak Urban Decay mascara. I'm getting a little bit better with the. I took a Ciate London makeup class. It was on eyeshadow. Anyways, so I'm going to visit my mother in the memory care unit. I'm waiting on Sam. She loves to read books, so I'm gonna take this one for her to read. I get her library books and stuff, so I have to swap those out. But I wanted to make a point that when you have children and you've been through trauma, it's really important to try to break those cycles. My house was completely dysfunctional growing up, it was just a shit show. And I had my first child at 17. I got pregnant when I was 16. When he was 5 months old, my baby, when my son was 5 months old, his father died. It was hepatitis, but by the time he figured out what he had, it was fulminant, which was aggressive, sudden, quick. He was building on a wing of the local hospital where we lived, and from what I've been told, he thought he had the flu. He went to the ER there, where he was building onto the hospital, the wing, and they immediately sent him to MUSC, the Medical University of South Carolina. It was hepatitis. It was not the flu. From the day of his diagnosis to the day of death was 6 days. 6 days it took. He went into a coma, was in a coma most of that time. I went down to MUSC with our baby boy to see him. I didn't know at that time he was going to die. We didn't know. Security escorted us out of the hospital. Now, I knew that he couldn't go into the ICU room. He was a baby. But they would not even allow us to be in the hospital. Security guard came up and said, "You have to leave. You're upsetting the family." Years later, when I spoke to his sister, she told me, she said, "No, we didn't tell them that." It was another girl that they were trying to keep out, one of the other girls that was like in love with him or whatever. Um, but it didn't matter because the damage had been done, and they even had police at the funeral. I wasn't even allowed to go to that. So we went after the funeral. I took my son to his father's grave after the funeral, and that is where we visited for many years of his life. Twice a year, we would go to Jesse's grave. So I raised my son that way with no contact from his paternal family. And years later, when he was 18 and they did reconnect or connect or whatever, there's a whole lot of misinformation going around. The sister the one of his sisters, he had, at that time, he had two sisters and then himself that I know of. We were just friends, and it just happened once, and I got pregnant. I mean, it was crazy how that happened. And then when he died, I was just like, it was meant. My son was meant to be. He is their brother's only child. They connected with him. One of his sisters always wanted to be around, but we moved a lot. So I would leave our address and phone number on Jesse's grave, waterproofed. And every time we go back to visit, they'd be gone. But for some reason, his grandparents never reached out. His grandfather did once and saw him once when he was 2 years old. I had pictures of him sitting on his grandfather's lap. It was right before his second birthday because I invited him to his second birthday. And he's like, "Yeah, I'll be there." I talked to him on the phone. "Yeah, I'm coming. I'll be there." Not only did he not show up, he didn't mail a card, he didn't send a phone call, he never visited again. So at that moment, I made the decision that I was not going to be that. My son was not going to be that kid in the window waiting on someone to pick him up and then not show. Because that happened to me growing up. My dad would, I'll be there and I'd be watching out the window and he didn't show up. So, I did what was best for my child. When they did meet when Ryan was 18, the funny thing was, the other sister said, "We asked you for a DNA test." That's a lie. I always offered to take a DNA test. They never, none of his family ever asked me for that because I had no problem doing it, and I'd do it even now today. And I told my son, I was like, "Do you want to do it?" And he's like, I don't care. They weren't there when I was growing up. Well, I don't need them now. But yeah, I did offer, and they just never wanted to do it. Another thing is the sister said that I was sleeping with a whole bunch of people. Lies. He was. I was not. I know who my baby's father was. Um, Apparently, three girls were claiming that they had babies by him. So why should I be believed? I was like, well, I mean, that's why I offered to take DNA tests, so whatever. Um, but then I met my wonderful husband when my son was 10 years old, and he became the only father he's ever had. And that's it. You know, that's what it is. That is what it is. Um, I say all of that to say that when I went to California, when I was groomed, when I was assaulted, when my first time was stolen from me, there were several years where I was celibate. I didn't want to be around anybody. And then as I got a little bit older, and I realized that my dream of being a virgin when I was married was stolen. That was what I always thought would happen. I decided that it didn't matter. It didn't matter. My son was born. I had a little boy to think of, but I was drinking away the pain. I started drinking away the pain. I never liked pot, and I never got into hard drugs, thank God. But my grandmother, in her sweet 80-something-year-old mind, knew I had big boobs and a bad back, and so she would give me handfuls of Vicodin, and that's how that started. Because she would get big giant bottle because she was elderly, and she had Vicodin and Librium. That was her anti-anxiety med. So pocket full of pills anytime I wanted, and I loved pain pills. I didn't really care about the benzos too much, but I loved the Vicodin. Um, I went through a lot of surgeries, and I would get these, you know, dihydrocodeine, I believe, or no, hydromorphone. Sorry, yeah, that one Dilaudid. That one was nice, but I was able to just stop those things when I had them. Boy, I would abuse the shit out of them. But when they were gone, they were gone. Um, but the drinking was a lot easier because it's just there. It's everywhere. My dad, though, he's what's kept me sober. My father was an active alcoholic when I was growing up, but on my 17th birthday, I was 3 months pregnant. I told him that if he was still drinking, that he would not meet his first grandchild. So, um, June 12th of 1992 was my dad's first day sober and my 17th birthday. And it's been 30 years for him. This year, when I turn 47, he celebrates 30 years of sobriety. I missed out on a dad, but my kids, my four boys, have the best grandfather imaginable, and I'm so grateful to God that they never knew that man that he was. Alcohol destroys. It destroys families, it destroys homes, it destroys lives, and it is so much harder to get away from than, say, heroin and street drugs and shit like that because America has this huge problem. There's advertisements for alcohol everywhere you turn, everywhere you look, every occasion, every celebration, every football game, every basketball game, everything, every day. You can't escape it. It's in your face. When you go to pick up a Pepsi, there's the Bud Light, or whatever your drink of choice was in there. You can't escape it. So to put it down like my father did and stay sober through Guillain-Barré syndrome, through throat cancer. My father has a scar here to here from throat surgery. Um, Through all the pain that his physical body has experienced. And he still to this day won't even have mouthwash that has alcohol in it. He refused narcotics. He took them in the hospital through the IV pump, but as soon as he was sent home, he refused prescription narcotics. There's my son's bus. You can see it coming there. But my Boo Bear's home. So I am gonna get out of here, guys. Alrighty. I'll be back soon though. Peace. Bye.